I knew early on that I needed to grow, I had to get better, and so I started reading all these books. I read everything that I could find, right? I went to all the courses, all the seminars, all the webinars, and I found it interesting that I would read this book, and this person would talk about their experience and how they gained success, and they'd say, this is how I did it. And then I would read another book, and this person would talk about their success and how they did it, and the way they did it was completely opposite from the first book. And so what I found myself trying to do was I was trying to apply all these principles that I was learning from all these books, and it led to a lot of confusion. Hey guys, welcome back to the Cory Lief Show, and in this video, I'm going to share with you the 7 books that changed my life as a leader, and I'm going to share with you some of the key takeaways that I have from each one of those books. We all know that all leaders are readers, but not all readers are leaders. And the reason is that leaders, we know that we've got to continue to grow. I've got to keep getting better, that I cannot lead you tomorrow based on today's leadership understanding. And so I've got to grow. And I also know that if I'm not growing today, then I am today all I will ever be. And I don't know about you guys, that's much more depressing than it is inspiring. Growth is the only guarantee that tomorrow will be better. And culture is just such, you can see it right now. I don't know what industry you are in, but culture and change is coming, and it's always coming. And so we want to continue to grow and develop so we can stay ahead of that. A couple years ago, we've got 3 small kids, and this is several years ago. Our son, he was in the 2nd grade, and I was doing his math homework with him. All right. And I was doing his math homework with him. I remember trying to do this math homework with him. I was like, golly, they learning in 2nd grade what I can remember learning in high school, right? And I told my wife, I said, all right, that's it. I'm tapped out on math. It's your turn, right? I guess I now know that I am a 2nd grade math level. But the reason I share that is that education is changing. Your industry is changing, healthcare, government, all of that. And if I'm not growing, I'm not just standing still. I'm honestly getting left behind. And so we've got to keep getting better and keep improving. And reading is one of the best ways to do that, is because I get to learn from others who have gained a certain level of expertise and experience, so I can shorten that learning curve, if you will. I can learn from their experiences. But I do want to give you a little bit of a warning. This is something I've learned along the way, and maybe just something to consider. Early on, when we had opened up our business, for those that are new to me and my wife, in a 5-year period of time, we built 2 physical therapy clinics, 4 gyms, had 3 kids, sold all the businesses, kept all the kids, and then I transitioned into doing what I do today, which is coaching, speaking, training, working with leaders around the world. And I knew early on that I needed to grow, I had to get better, and so I started reading all these books. I read everything that I could find, right? I went to all the courses, all the seminars, all the webinars, and I found it interesting that I would read this book, and this person would talk about their experience and how they gained success, and they'd say, this is how I did it. And then I would read another book, and this person would talk about their success and how they did it, and the way they did it was completely opposite from the first book. And so what I found myself trying to do was I was trying to find these, I was trying to apply all these principles that I was learning from all these books, and it led to a lot of confusion. It led to me doing a lot of activity that was not productive. And so this is just, you can do with this whatever you want to. It's kind of like a buffet line. If you like it, put it on your tray. If you don't, just bypass it. But I learned, and something I coach people in now, is find you about 1 or 2 voices and just stick with those voices for a season. Not for life, but for a season. Find you 1 or 2 voices and just listen to everything that they've got. Learn from them. Listen to their books, or read their books, listen to their podcasts, listen to their videos, all of that. Because what you're trying to do is you're trying to build a foundation. Once that foundation is built, you can start to filter the other learning through that. And now you know what you believe. As you're doing that, another thing I would encourage you is find someone that you align with in values. Find a values match. in whatever mentor, if you will, that you're looking for through your books. And so you can do that with whatever you want to. And so here we go. Here are the 7 books that changed my life as a leader and some of the lessons I learned through those books. And I just want to say, number 1 is not number 1. This is not in, oh, this is my number 1, number 2, all of that. We just got to start somewhere, right? If we got a list, we got to start somewhere. And this is number 1. The first one is The 21 Laws of Leadership by John Maxwell. John Maxwell, if you don't know who that is, if you Googled leadership, he's probably going to pop up on the Google first page because he's written more on the topic of leadership. He's considered the leadership guru, if you will. And this is a book. One of the things I like about John Maxwell's content, it is like cookies on the bottom shelf. It is simple to understand. And that's what great communicators do. They take something complex and they simplify it. And John's a great communicator. And so 21 Laws of Leadership. And if you think about something that's considered a law means it worked 1,000 years ago. It'll work 1,000 years from today, and it works today. And he said these are the laws as it pertains to leadership, leading other people well and influencing other people. And this is actually something that I teach a lot on. I go into companies and teach these laws. But one of the laws that really stood out to me was, it's called the law of the lid. And what the law of the lid says is that if you lead anything, if I lead anything, as the leader, I am the lid on that team. My team will never surpass my ability to lead. So on a scale of 1 to 5 or 1 to 10, let's say 1 to 10, let's say I'm a 5, then my team will never be beyond a 5. They will be a 4, 3, 2, or 1 because I am the lid on that team. However, if I raise my lid, then the potential of my team will go up as well. When we had our physical therapy clinic, we started to grow and develop, and we had to hire somebody. And I'll just be honest with you, this is I probably got the most nervous at this point because now I knew that as a leader, my decisions didn't just affect me and my family. Now they affected somebody else's family, and I had to grow. And so I realized that I had a lid. I just did not know what I did not know. Well, as I continued to grow, I realized that my next lid was that I was growing, but the people around me were not. And so I had to start developing the people around me, empowering them and equipping them. And my next lid for me was I have this bad tendency to people please. And so I wasn't holding people accountable. I wasn't giving clear directions and those kind of things. And that was a lid for me. You as a leader, we're always going to have a lid. If you get to a point we say we never have a lid, then we probably stopped growing. And so I would encourage you as you think about that, on a scale of 1 to 10, what would you rate yourself as it applies to someone who is a leader, your ability to lead other people? And then as you think about that number, what do you feel like your current lid is? If you're a 5 or a 6, what keeps you from being a 7? Identify that. We don't play the shame game or the blame game, but I do want to be aware of my blind spots. And so 21 Laws of Leadership, man, great book, easy read right there. And so the second book that really made an impact on me was Rich Dad, Poor Dad by Robert Kiyosaki. And if you've been in the leadership, personal growth lane, I know you've had to have heard about this book. It is a big time classic. But for me, it's such a paradigm shifting book because I was taught much like him in this book, that I was taught to go to school, get a degree, get a good job, and stay there until death, right? Until death do you part. And I was taught things like, don't take risk. It's better to be safe than it is to be sorry. But like he says in the book, in school, we're taught how to work for money, but we aren't taught how money actually works. See, money is currency, and so it should be current. It should be in flow. Money should go to work for me. Something Brian Buffini talks about that I really like. He says, when I get up in the morning and I'm getting ready to go to work and I'm shaving, I want my coins to be getting up and shaving and getting ready to go to work as well. It's just kind of an analogy he talks about of my money going to work for me. And so if you're not familiar with this book, it's Rich Dad, Poor Dad. Robert Kiyosaki talks about growing up having a rich dad and a poor dad, and they're opposites. And his rich dad was actually his best friend's dad, his poor dad was his real dad. And his poor dad, he mentions, had this thought of go to school, get a degree, get a good job, and be secure from that perspective. His rich dad taught him about how money works and how to buy assets. And so in this book, what I learned was about assets and liabilities. I learned about good debt and how to leverage good debt to actually build wealth. I also learned, he talks about, this is a great entrepreneur lesson for me, about the cash flow quadrant. And if you imagine a quadrant, he says there are 4 parts to this. And on the left side of the quadrant is working for money, and the right side is money working for you. And so he talks about how employees, they are working for money. They are trading time for dollars. They are working for someone else's business. Under that is, he puts an S, and that is the self-employed. This is a great majority of the entrepreneurs. It's how I worked for a time. And not really do they own a business, but they own a job because they are still trading hours for dollars. To get to the right side, he talks about being a business owner or an investor. And the difference between being self-employed and a business owner is a business owner actually has systems and processes in place that the business does not require their physical time. They are no longer trading hours for dollars. They have created the systems, the processes, and put people in place that the business can grow of itself. Hey guys, I hope you are enjoying this episode of the Cory Lee Show. Y'all, I am on a mission to build leaders and to transform culture. So if you're looking for a speaker who speaks directly to the heart, a mentor to come alongside you and your team, or if you're in a position where you're looking for a personal coach who embraces where you are and also believes in who you could become, then I would be honored to walk this path with you. Simply reach out to me on my email at Cory@CoryLeeLeadership.com. Look, let's make your vision a reality. Contact me, and together we'll navigate the path from aspiration to achievement. Your transformation, it starts now. An investor is someone that they invest in different products, whether that's in the stock market or real estate or invest in business, but their money is actually working for them. Again, it doesn't require their physical presence to do it. And so for me, that was a game changer in understanding business. Number 3, a great book on leadership is Extreme Ownership. Love this book by Jocko, Willink, and Lief, Babin. The main lesson in it is how we take personal responsibility for everything underneath our leadership umbrella. I actually did a video series on this on YouTube. You can find that. You can click the link here or in the show notes or wherever our editor can figure that out at. But what I did a series on this book, Extreme Ownership, and talked about different chapters and the leadership principles in that. I take about 7 to 10 minutes to dive into those chapters and pull out some of the nuggets. But one of my favorite stories that they tell in this book is that goes along with leadership. It goes along with this leadership phrase that everything rises and falls on leadership. Think about that. That's a phrase going back to the John Maxwell book, 21 Laws of Leadership. He says everything rises and falls on leadership. I just want you to think, do you agree with that or disagree with that? Think about that for a minute. And what he's saying is that with good leadership, things get better. With bad leadership, things get worse. And so I've also discovered working with teams that many times you don't know how good leadership is until you experience bad leadership. Sometimes you don't know how bad the leadership was until you actually experience good leadership. But an amazing story that they tell in this book, Jocko Willink, again, this is Navy SEALs, and he was a commanding officer there in the war there. But he was telling this story about how he was the boot camp or the director over Hell Week, and he had all these people who were trying to get into the Navy SEALs, and they would set up on 8-man boat crews, and they would take these inflatable rafts and do all kind of obstacles, go into the ocean, do different kind of obstacles, and they just did race after race after race. And he noticed that one team always was coming in first, and noticed the other team was always coming in last. And he said, I wonder what would happen if we take the leader on that last place team and made him the leader of the first place team. And if we take the leader of the first place team and made him leader of the last place team, and if we change nothing else, just change those two things, I wonder what would happen. And it was really interesting. He says that was the only thing they changed, was they changed out the leadership, and the team that was coming in last now started getting in first. And the team that was getting first now came in second. And it goes into this whole thing that everything rises and falls on leadership. Really powerful book. The next book is Think and Grow Rich. Man, one of my favorites, another classic. This is a go-to for me. And I actually did an online course. We did this 13-week super deep dive into this powerful lesson. You can actually go to my website and get this e-course. It's called Breaking Through to Greatness. But if you've never read Think and Grow Rich, the story behind it is Napoleon Hill. He took 20 years and he studied the lives of 25,000 people. 500 of these people were the wealthiest, most successful people in the world at that time. And this book was released in the 1930s. And so you're thinking early 1900s. And so some of these wealthy people were Henry Ford, Rockefeller, Andrew Carnegie, the Wright brothers, those kind of people. And he noticed that there were certain principles that these 500 held to that the other people didn't. And he came up with 13 principles that separated the successful from the unsuccessful, and that's what that book is about. Think and Grow Rich is the 13 principles of success. But one of the lessons in there that I want to talk about, he talks about the imagination. And he makes this statement: man's only limitation within reason lies within the development and the use of their imagination. How about that? Man's only limitation within reason lies within the development and the use of their imagination. Now, I don't know about you. I can probably come up with a few other examples of what limits me. But he said one of the primary limitations is your use of your imagination. And as I've thought about that, 100% agree. See, you and I, we have an imagination. You and I also use our imagination. We can use our imagination to say all the reasons why something's not going to work out. We can use our imagination to say all the reasons why something's going to fail or how it's not going to work out. Or we can use our imagination to create plans and to create solutions. We can use our imaginations to put a how in front of the can I. How can I? See, how can I triggers the creative use of your imagination. You know, when you're in bed at night and you worrying, that's you using your imagination. And so I totally agree with him. Man's only limitation within reason lies in the development and the use of their imagination. So I would challenge you, I would ask you is, hey, how are you using your imagination? Anything is possible. Your dream is possible. There is no such thing as lack and scarcity. There is only abundance, and we limit ourselves. And if you doubt what I'm saying, I want you to go outside, and I want you to stand in the grass, and I want you to try to count the blades of grass at your feet. Just look at a tree and count the leaves on one branch of one tree. God is a God of an abundance, right? Like Jesus said, I come to give life and life abundance. And so man's only limitation is in the development and the use of their imagination. And so one of my favorite books. Another one of my favorites is The Traveler's Gift, number 5. So Traveler's Gift by Andy Andrews. This is probably one of my favorites because it's actually probably the first book I actually read. and it was in season for me. We actually used to have the stacks of these books that we would hand out at our physical therapy clinic to high school athletes and students. And so Traveler's Gift, written by Andy Andrews. Kind of the story behind it is it's a fictional story, but it's got amazing leadership principles in it. This guy, he has an accident and he gets to go back in time and meet 7 historical figures, and they give him 7 principles to life. And I'm just going to read you some of these. These are some of the principles. It says, number 1 is the buck stops here. The words, "it's not my fault," have been written on the gravestones of many unsuccessful people since Eve took a bite of that apple. Until you change the way of thinking from "it's not my fault," there is no basis for change. See, the bad news is the past was in your hands. The good news is, hey, the future is in your hands as well. The buck stops here. Number 2 is I will seek wisdom. It's the lazy man that never seeks wisdom. At what age are we no longer influenced by those we associate with always. Many of our problems can be traced back to our relationships with the wrong people. Guard your associations well. He says, I will seek wisdom. Number 3 is I'm a person of action. Number 4, I have a decided heart. 5, I choose to be happy. 6, I'll have a forgiving spirit. And then the last one, I will persist without exception. And that's an interesting way he phrased it. I will persist without exception. Most of us, we will persist until certain kind of hardships come. He says, I will persist without exception. There is one lesson in this book that was most impactful for me, and I don't want to mess up the whole book if you're really interested in reading it. But that at the end, one of the people he gets to meet is the angel Gabriel, all right? I'm sorry if I'm messing up the book. This is spoiler alert for you. But he's in this place that's got like rows and rows of bicycles and rows of computers and rows of all these kind of different things. And he sees all these formulas and all this stuff. And he asks the angel Gabriel, what is this place? And he sees all these pictures of little kids, and he sees this picture of these 2 kids, a little boy and a little girl, and he asked the angel Gabriel, what is this place? And who are these people? And he said the name of the 2 kids, and he said, wow, that's what we were going to name our 2 kids. But we decided not to have children at that time. We didn't think we had enough money. And then he kept persisting of like, what is this place? And the angel Gabriel said, well, this is the place that never was. And it's just such a powerful, powerful thought of, of the things that we have these ideas and these desires, and we limit ourselves and never bring them forward because we play so small. We make excuses for the dreams that are stirring within our heart, and we buy more into our excuses than the desire trying to percolate itself up. So very powerful book. Number 6, this one's a little bit different. One of my favorite books called Intercessor by Reshaped. This is much more of a Christian faith-based book, but it's so profound for me, and probably one of the best books I've read in probably several years, one of the best books I've read in several years, and is really his biography, the biography of Reshaped. And the only thing I really knew about Reshaped before I read this book was that I had heard Winston Churchill talk about Reshaped, that if it were not for his prayers, then Nazi Germany would have invaded and overtaken Great Britain. That's all I'd known. But I love this book because I love learning from people who actually live out the things they talk about. Like you can say whatever you want to about your theology or whatever you want to say about what you believe, but your actions will show what you truly believe. And a man with an experience, it trumps a man with a theory all day long. This man's story, to me, is so encouraging because it's an example of a life laid down in full surrender. And it goes to show what the Lord can do through a vessel that's willing to listen and act at the slightest whisper of the sound of his voice and not allow the fear of man to stop. Really, really powerful book, a man of faith and a man of action who made a dent in the history books, who made an impact in history, in his generation. And if you've been listening to me for long enough, you know that's my jam right there, is I desire to develop leaders who make an impact in this generation and to equip the next, to be rivers and not just reservoirs. And so, powerful book. Last book, number 7, I'm Leading with Insight by Cory, Lief, by me. I know, okay, it's a shameless plug. But this was a powerful one for me because although it was really my second book released, this is my second book that I actually completed. It was really the first one that I started to write. And I wrote it from the quiet moments with the Holy Spirit. So I said that we owned some businesses. We sold those. And one of our businesses was a gym, and I would get up early. I'd get there, I'd get up at 4:30 to go to the gym. And when we sold and I transitioned out, I said, you know what? I'm just going to I'm going to keep getting up at 4:30 in the morning. And I'm going to just start reading my Bible. And where I started at was in the book of Proverbs. There's 31 Proverbs. And so I just read a proverb a day. And then I transitioned into praying those Proverbs. I would just pray out what I was reading. And the Lord started downloading, giving me revelation of different proverbs, and I was just starting to write down what the Lord was teaching me. And after a year or so, I was like, wow, this could be a book. This is some good stuff. I wonder if I can put it out there and share it with other people. And so I started to write that book. And what's really interesting, when you think about the book of Proverbs, most of the Proverbs were written by King Solomon. King Solomon, his dad was King David. And King David, if any of you are familiar with his story, he had an affair with a woman named Bathsheba. And the Lord comes to him through the prophet and says, hey, the baby's going to die. And later on says, hey, I'm going to give you another son. You're going to name him Solomon. And Solomon is who is going to be the king after you. So think about this. From a very early age, Solomon was told that he was going to be king, or it was known that Solomon was going to be king. From a very early age, this dude was taught how to lead an entire nation. He was taught how to lead from a high level. And so he didn't get just the regular Hebrew training of that day. He got leadership lessons from the top. He was taught how to lead. And so when you read Proverbs filtered through a lens of leadership, there's some interesting things that pop out. And so that's my book, Leading with Insight, 31 Days of Wisdom for Leaders. It's kind of written in a devotional style where I take a proverb in one of the chapters and I partner it with a leadership principle. And so one of my favorite books, mainly because it's near and dear to me. And so anyway, I hope this video has added value to you. And actually on my website, you can go to my website and I have this download where you can get 57 of my favorite books. And I've got it listed out in different topics of leadership, personal growth, faith, finance, mindset, biography. And so if you wanted that, you can go to my website. I'll have a link in the show notes, but you can just download that and you can grab that. So, hey, I hope this video has added value to you, and make sure you like and subscribe so you can stay up to date with any of the latest episodes of the Cory Lee Show. Hope you have a great day and God bless.
3, 2, 1. Okay.
Thanks for joining me today. I hope I have added value to you. And if you have found value in this episode, let me know. Drop a comment and make sure you share with a friend or family member. See you next episode.